I am extremely confident. I have a very high degree of confidence that the risk reward of buying Bitcoin here it's a tremendous value. And so I know that if I believe that Bitcoin will be $1 million someday soon, whether it's in 2030 or 2035, just on fair value, I know that the market's discounting that to somewhere around a 94% probability that it's going down to zero versus a 5 or 6% probability that it's going to $1 million.
Happy 2024 Bitcoin Halving Day, the much anticipated event that would see Bitcoin's block rewards halved from 6.25 Bitcoin to 3.125 Bitcoin. The moment we've been awaiting is nearly upon us, and it promises to be as exciting as we imagined. There was a little bit of disturbance earlier as Bitcoin slipped below $60,000 for the first time since late February. Other cryptocurrencies, including Ethereum and Solana, also took a hit, but prices are stabilizing again in preparation for the much anticipated event. Though there has been much criticism, including warnings from two of the world's most prominent investment banking giants, Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan, crypto experts believe this halving will have as much impact, if not more than, previous halving events. According to Goldman Sachs, macro and geopolitical conditions today are most unstable compared to previous halvings. As such, the banking giant warns investors not to expect significant post-halving rallies for Bitcoin. However, anonymous Bitcoin analyst PlanB says this halving will be no different. One of his recent posts on the topic reads, "In my opinion, this Bitcoin halving will not be different. All Bitcoin price increases will again be around the halving. Buying 6 months before the halving and selling 18 months after the halving will outperform buy and hold. Bitcoin will be above $100,000 in 2024 and above $300,000 at the top in 2025. In another post, the former institutional investor writes, "Happy Bitcoin halving and stock to flow doubling. In the 6 months before the halving, insiders front run it, and price does 2x. In the 6 months after the halving, miners' revenue adjusts, and price does 2x. 6 to 18 months after the halving, the rest of the market rushes to get a piece of the pie, and price does 4x. Reformed hedge fund manager and author of the Informationist newsletter, James Lavish, is as bullish as PlanB on the Bitcoin halving and how much impact it'll have on Bitcoin prices within the next few months. During a recent interview with Kitco News, James shares his short and long-term price outlook for Bitcoin, predicting that the leading cryptocurrency will hit $100,000 in 2024 and $1 million within the next decade. James does not share Goldman Sachs' concerns about the macro environment and heightening geopolitical tensions. Instead, he believes these factors will push Bitcoin prices even higher. As we bring you clips from the interview, please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. Thank you, and enjoy the video.
Well, what I expect is we have a number of different factors that are going on. Okay, so the first factor we have going on is that we just had these ETFs approved. There have been billions of dollars come into these ETFs, hundreds of millions almost every single day since the since the approval and the trading of these ETFs. They're significant for the people who don't know who are watching. They're so significant because these are spot-based ETFs, which mean they legally must own the same amount of Bitcoin to the underlying NAV value. So if somebody puts in $1 into that ETF, they have to make sure that there's at least $1 worth of Bitcoin in that ETF to match it, right? So that's why it's so significant. It's not like a future where it's just cash settled. It's just really just a bet on price. These are actually, they have to own the underlying. And so what we're seeing is, and I was one of the people who was a little bit more optimistic and enthusiastic about when these were approved, that we would have a rush of institutions into the space. The reality is, and I understand this, being in the space for a long time, that it takes weeks and months for these banks and for these institutions to create the on-ramps onto the superhighway. So the superhighway is built, it's easy to buy, and now they have to build those on-ramps. The question is, are the banks ready to do this? Are the institutions ready to do this? Do they understand Bitcoin enough? And they're slowly coming to that realization. They're slowly understanding it. They're watching it trade every single day and seeing there are no problems with the custody. They see there's no problem with the settlement. And so it's become easier. It's just taking time. And so we're bumping up against that, or we're kind of passing through that 90, 100-day window that is kind of a quiet period that these banks use in order to make sure that it is working the way that they expect it to work, and that the risks it's de-risked on an operational side. So now they're starting to put it in place where you can offer it to your clients if you're an RIA. You can offer it to your investors if you're at Merrill Lynch or JP Morgan or Morgan Stanley. So it's starting, and it's more of a trickle right now that I think becomes a river. But, it's just taking time. So that is a major factor, though, Michelle, is that this is occurring. I am talking to people who are in institutions that are starting to dip their toe in, and it remains to be seen how quickly and who is in. But this is an important development, and it's different from every other halving. This is a significant change, and it will impact the price positively, in my opinion. Is this halving less impactful than prior halvings? I would say probably it is. There's a few things, though. When you think about it, there's only been 3 halvings, right? So this is the 4th one. And so it's a very small data set to look at. Is it significant? What we have seen each halving is, yes, it's been significant price appreciation after the halving. Not right afterwards, but somewhere around the 6 to 18 month period afterwards, you see a large increase in price in Bitcoin. Now, do I expect the same thing to happen this time? I do. I expect it to be similar, and the factor that it is up, the actual percentage, I'm not sure what it could be. You and I have talked about this quite a bit before. I don't love making price predictions, but I do have a prediction that it is going up, and significantly.
James believes this halving event and the overall crypto bull market will be even more impactful on crypto asset prices than previous cycles because of the recently approved spot Bitcoin ETFs, which are, as we speak, giving tens of thousands of institutional investors access to the leading cryptocurrency for the first time in 15 years. In more posts and comments shared on social media platform X, PlanB speaks further about the halving and the overall bull market. In one of his posts, someone predicted that Bitcoin would surpass gold's market cap this cycle. Here's PlanB's response. Agree. Bitcoin must take out gold because it will have 2x scarcity/stock to flow. My Bitcoin top of over $300,000 is the low end of the $250K to $1 million range. Last cycle, I took the high end, and Bitcoin decided to go low end. Let's see how this will work out. In another post, PlanB points out that nothing will happen for days after the halving, but significant price gains will take months. The post reads, "Nothing will happen in 2 days. We already had a nice little price increase from $34,000, October 2023, close, 6 months before the halving, to $62,000 now, almost 2x. In my opinion, we will have another 2x in the 6 to 10 months after the halving. Then another 2x to 4x face-melting FOMO top." Let's return to James's interview, where he discusses his expectations for Bitcoin amidst rising geopolitical tensions.
First of all, Bitcoin has had a tremendous run this year, right? So it's just taking a breather. I actually look at it as very healthy that it's consolidating here. You have a lot of old OGs, original Bitcoiners that have these wallets that are suddenly being activated that haven't been active in 5, 6, 7 years. And so what we're seeing is that there are some who are trading around it, and they're trading around that high, the all-time high price. And when it goes up to 70,000, they're selling it, and it creates some consolidation where people are taking profits. They're waiting for it to actually break through. and you've had some perpetual. If you watch the futures and the perpetual markets, you see that there's leverage at that price point above 70. But so what is going on? Well, it's going to take a tremendous amount of momentum to get through that level. And once it does, that's going to be a massive emotional level, and it's going to become some sort of base for it. So that's one of the things that we see going on, and it's difficult to time that, right? So you've had this run up from the ETFs. The ETFs were announced. It was a sell the news event for a day or two, and then they've had this tremendous rise since then. And now they're kind of backing off. They're backing off because, unfortunately, and like you said, most Bitcoin proponents all Bitcoin proponents who really understand that it's a risk-off asset. It's digital gold. It's gold 2, 3, 4.0. It is a much, much more elegant solution to hard money. Now, the problem is most people don't understand that. And in the world I come from the institutional investing world, it's just seen as digital. It's a digital currency that's speculative. It's young. It's not that much different from ETH. I hear people say this all the time. Well, what happens if Satoshi shows up and sells his million coins? Or what happens if Satoshi just decides to change the code? What happens if the government shuts it down? What happens if, and what they don't realize, and what's so difficult for people to get their head around, is that this is truly decentralized. It doesn't have anybody in charge of it. Satoshi's not in charge of it. The Bitcoin ecosystem stretches across the entire world. And so that is what protects it from bad actors and change in the code. And so, but it's going to take time for people to understand that, especially in the institutional space. And once they do, then it'll move from being a risk-on asset to becoming a risk-off asset. And when that happens, you're going to see Bitcoin not just take a little bit of market share from gold, but and I don't think it's going to demonetize gold completely, at least not for a while. But once it does do that, you'll start seeing people allocate out of their long bond portfolios into Bitcoin. Because why on earth would you be invested in a 30-year treasury that's yielding 5% when you know that the expansion of the money supply is over 7% for the last 50 years? Why would you do that? It makes absolutely no sense. So eventually you'll come to that realization, and you'll know that Bitcoin is a much better store of value than a long bond, even the US Treasury.
In other news, Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse has updated his earlier $5 trillion prediction for the overall crypto market cap by the end of the year. In a recent interview with Fox Business, Garlinghouse noted that his $5 trillion prediction might be too cautious. Despite recent price declines, the Ripple CEO is certain the crypto market will continue to see tailwinds because of the highly successful spot Bitcoin ETFs and the upcoming halving event. "I think it will continue to see tailwinds," he said during the interview. "This is partly because of the ETFs that have been approved and the imminent halving. Like any market, this is driven by supply and demand. You have a decreasing supply for a whole bunch of reasons. You have increasing demand, the ETF being a key part of that. I think that it's also people realizing that crypto plays a role as an asset. How bullish are you about the Bitcoin halving event? And how do you think it will impact Bitcoin and other crypto assets in the coming weeks and months? Please drop your comments and observations in the comments section below. Also, ensure you give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. Everything you do helps with the algorithm and contributes to the channel's growth. Thanks for watching.